Imagine an explosion so powerful it made the Milky Way look like a birthday candle in a wildfire. This isn't just another supernova, and it's not a hungry black hole either. It's something far, far bigger. Scientists stumbled upon it by accident. It released more energy than our sun will in its entire lifetime. And the scariest part? It's still happening right now. What could possibly cause such an extreme event in the universe? And what if it ever happens near us? Get ready to uncover the most insane and mysterious explosion ever recorded in the cosmos. And maybe what it's trying to tell us. Welcome to Unspoken Truth. Supernovae are the most powerful explosions in the universe, so extreme they can outshine entire galaxies. It's hard to even grasp that kind of force. We don't have a real-world metaphor that does it justice. But imagine this. If the sun were to suddenly go supernova, just hypothetically, it would feel like being hit by the energy of a nuclear bomb every second for weeks. Terrifying, right? Supernovae are both creators and destroyers. On one hand, they forge the very elements that make life possible, including the atoms in your body. On the other, they blast entire regions of galaxies into lifeless, sterile wastelands, burning everything in their path. So, what would happen if one went off near Earth? There are basically two known ways to trigger a supernova. The first, a massive star collapses in on itself, its core imploding under the weight of gravity. The second, rarer, happens when a white dwarf absorbs too much mass and ignites into a nuclear inferno. Either way, the result is the same, a colossal stellar explosion. But here's the twist. Unlike explosions on Earth that are over in seconds, a supernova is more like a monstrous volcano erupting, followed by wave after wave of cosmic tsunamis. First comes a blazing, colorful ball of expanding gas that glows in space for a month. Then, the real chaos begins. A storm of superheated gas races outward at 10,000 kilometers per second, plowing through the vacuum of space and sweeping up everything in its path. This shock wave doesn't fizzle out quickly. It keeps going for tens of thousands of years, eventually growing to span dozens of light years before it cools and fades back into the galaxy. But what if that wave, this cosmic tsunami, was headed straight for us? What happens then? Well, it all depends on distance. If it's thousands of light years away, we're mostly safe. In fact, humanity has already witnessed several supernovae in the past, all from a safe distance. But if one were to happen much closer, that's when things get really dangerous. When ancient humans looked up and saw a supernova, it must have seemed like a brand new star suddenly appeared out of nowhere, brighter than anything in the sky, sometimes even outshining the moon. For a few weeks, it would shimmer like a strange celestial visitor, and then vanish without a trace. At those vast distances, supernovae are mostly harmless, just beautiful, glowing mysteries in the night sky. But things start to get a little unsettling when one goes off at about 300 light years from Earth. That's close enough to raise some eyebrows, and statistically, we can expect a supernova to occur that close every few million years. It wouldn't be catastrophic, but it would be weird. Imagine the night sky glowing faintly like a ghostly twilight that never quite fades. It wouldn't hurt us directly, but we'd still feel the distant echoes of the explosion, like the final dying ripples of that stellar tsunami. And here's where it gets really interesting. We actually know that multiple supernovae have hit Earth from around this distance in the last 10 million years. How? Because buried deep in the sea floor, locked inside ancient layers of rock and sediment, are radioactive isotopes of iron. These are the fingerprints of nearby supernovae. Even more incredible, these stellar blasts helped carve out a massive bubble in our part of the galaxy, a hollow region of space nearly 1,000 light-years across, now known as the local bubble. It's like a giant cosmic scar, a reminder of how violent space can be. The supernovae that formed it blew away huge clouds of interstellar gas and dust, leaving behind a jagged, uneven wall of material. Ironically, this structure is now helping to create new stars, a chaotic cycle of destruction and rebirth. But things get even more serious when the distance drops again. Stage 3, 150 light-years away. When a supernova happens this close, we enter a danger zone, not just because of raw energy, but because dying stars unleash incredibly powerful magnetic fields, and those magnetic monsters can wreak havoc in ways we're only beginning to understand. The tsunami from a dying star isn't just a cloud of hot gas. It's something far more dangerous. This expanding shock wave carries with it a tangled mess of magnetic energy like invisible wires wrapped through space. It's supercharged and chaotic, turning the surrounding area into a kind of natural particle accelerator. Inside this massive magnetized storm, particles like protons, electrons, and atomic nuclei are whipped up to insane speeds, approaching the speed of light. And that means even long after the bright flash of the explosion is gone, the supernova is still firing deadly radiation in all directions. It becomes an invisible threat, a slow radioactive flood moving through space. If one of these supernovae goes off too close to us, waves of these high-energy particles, called cosmic rays, will crash into the solar system for thousands of years. Here on Earth, we're mostly shielded by the atmosphere and ozone layer, which absorb the worst of it. But not all of it. The extra radiation that slips through would increase cancer rates, cause more genetic mutations, and slowly chip away at our biological defenses. It wouldn't be an extinction-level event, but it would definitely leave a mark on human health. And outside our protective bubble, space travel would become nearly impossible. Astronauts caught in this radiation storm wouldn't last long, not even with today's shielding. For as long as these waves continue, our species could be stuck on Earth, grounded by a sky that's too dangerous to touch. We don't know exactly how devastating this would be, but a close enough supernova might delay humanity's expansion into space by generations, maybe even millennia. And sadly, this is still not the worst-case scenario. It gets darker. Stage 4, a blast from within 100 light-years. This is where things really take a turn. At this distance, the explosion doesn't just send radiation our way. It actually begins to tamper with Earth's climate. And here's the troubling part. We're still not entirely sure how. What we do know is that a few nasty effects begin to stack up. First, the initial shock hits us with a burst of high-energy photons. Then, for decades, Earth is bathed in waves of radiation from that radioactive star tsunami. Radiation from a nearby supernova doesn't just hit Earth and move on. It tears into the planet's natural defenses. One of the first and worst victims? The ozone layer, our invisible shield against the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays. Normally, the ozone layer works like a self-healing barrier. When UV light hits it, ozone molecules, O3, break apart into O2 and a free oxygen atom, which then recombine back into ozone. But supernova radiation throws a wrench into this cycle. It smashes apart nitrogen molecules in the atmosphere, creating reactive compounds that steal away those free oxygen atoms. Without them, the ozone layer can't repair itself, and it collapses rapidly. With no protective shield, the surface of Earth becomes a deadly place. UV radiation from the sun pours in without resistance. Cancer rates would soar. Going outside during the day could become outright dangerous. But it's not just humans at risk. In the oceans, plankton near the surface, the foundation of almost every marine food chain, would die off en masse from the sudden spike in radiation. That kind of collapse could spiral into a major extinction event, wiping out entire ecosystems. And it gets worse. All that radiation would ionize the gases in our atmosphere, meaning it would knock electrons off atoms and molecules, leaving behind a swarm of charged particles. These charged particles act like seeds, allowing water vapor to cling to them more easily and form massive clouds. In the worst-case scenario, these clouds would become thick and widespread enough to block sunlight and plunge the planet into an ice age. This isn't just speculation either. Many scientists believe that a supernova around 2.5 million years ago might have helped trigger the last ice age. Others think a much closer one, just 60 light-years away, may have caused the Devonian mass extinction 350 million years ago. And yet, we're still not done, because there's another stranger effect. Those freed-up electrons don't just disappear. They set off huge electrical avalanches in the atmosphere, and that's where things get truly wild. In other words, lightning. But not just any lightning. We're talking about the most intense, chaotic thunderstorms Earth has seen in millions of years. These aren't just storms, they're global electrical assaults. The sky would unleash wave after wave of lightning strikes, igniting massive wildfires across continents. Forests would burn, crops would be destroyed, cities could be devastated, our power grids would fail. Global supply chains would collapse. All of this while deadly UV radiation pours in from above through a shattered ozone layer. In the ancient past, Earth's ecosystems might have eventually recovered from a nearby supernova. But that was before humans built a fragile, interconnected civilization. Modern society depends on stable systems: agriculture, infrastructure, energy, logistics. A supernova this close could bring them all crashing down. The result? Global food shortages, prices exploding overnight, widespread panic, war, governments scrambling to hold on to order. For modern civilization, this wouldn't just be a disaster. It could be a death sentence. At best, we'd be looking at massive damage lasting hundreds or thousands of years. At worst, it could mean the end of civilization as we know it, and with it, the loss of millions, maybe even billions of lives. And yet, humanity might still endure. Somewhere, people would survive. Somewhere, we would rebuild. But now, we've reached stage 5, a supernova less than 25 light-years away. This is no longer just a bad day for Earth. This is an extinction-level event. We are now inside the supernova's kill radius. At this distance, there's no escape. The ozone layer wouldn't just weaken, it would be obliterated. with over half of it gone. Climate systems would be torn apart in ways we've never seen. Ecosystems would collapse almost instantly. Radiation would blanket the planet. Wildfires would spread faster than ever before, and all the chaos we described earlier, it would happen again, only much faster and on a much greater scale. Some people might manage to survive, at least for a while, sealed inside deep underground bunkers, stockpiled with food and supplies. But the world they eventually step back into wouldn't be the one they left. It would be a scorched, broken wasteland, a planet stripped of its protection, hostile to almost all life. For hundreds of thousands of years, Earth would remain dangerous. Human extinction wouldn't just be possible, it would be extremely likely. And that brings us to the final and most terrifying stage, a supernova just 4 light years away. That's the distance to Alpha Centauri, our nearest stellar neighbor. Thankfully, the odds of one going off this close are almost non-existent, because space is vast. But if it did happen, the effects would be beyond catastrophic. The exploding star would be so bright that it would rival the sun in our sky, literally lighting up the day and casting double shadows at night. That might sound cool at first, for a few hours. But within days, the surface of Earth would begin to feel like a sauna. Temperatures would climb rapidly, baking the planet's surface for weeks as the light from the explosion continues to flood in. And then comes the real horror. The radiation storm that follows would rip apart the ozone layer, and with it, our last line of defense. Anything on Earth exposed to the sky would die. Forests, animals, humans, all wiped out by a brutal, invisible wave of radiation. Even the oceans wouldn't protect life. The radiation would reach the surface layers of the sea and kill nearly everything that needs sunlight to live. Only the deepest life forms in the oceans and a few resilient organisms buried in soil would stand a chance. The result? The greatest extinction event in Earth's history. Life wouldn't just be set back, it would have to start over almost entirely, clawing its way back from the brink in the dark depths of the planet. So, how worried should you be about all of this? Should you be packing a bunker or planning for the end of the world? The good news is, no. There's no immediate danger. In fact, there are only a few stars within 1,000 light years of Earth that could potentially go supernova, and none of them are anywhere near close enough to pose a serious threat to our planet. Even better, these stars are expected to remain stable for millions, even billions of years before they even think about exploding. So for now, you're safe. That being said, the universe is a massive, unpredictable place, and we can't predict exactly what will happen in the far future. Stars burn out, galaxies shift, and the cosmos doesn't always follow the rules we expect. But for today, the threat of a supernova wiping us out is far in the future. And for most of us, it's not something to lose sleep over. You're safe. But as with everything in life, you never know what tomorrow will bring. But here's the thing. While the universe may be unpredictable, there's one thing you can control: the power of your own mind. Imagine if you could unlock your brain's full potential, sharpen your focus, enhance memory, and accelerate learning, all while staying ahead of whatever challenges life throws your way. What if you could boost your mental power and prepare yourself for anything? That's exactly what my digital product can help you do. It's designed to accelerate brain function, giving you the tools to think faster, process information more efficiently, and achieve your goals like never before. And right now, I'm offering you an exclusive opportunity to get access to this life-changing program at an unbeatable price. But hurry, this offer won't last forever. Don't let the chaos of the universe leave you feeling unprepared. Take control of your mental power today and be ready for whatever comes next. Click the link below to claim your spot and start accelerating your brain power now.